Hi, I'm Michelle Sterling for Friends of Science Society. Since Elon Musk has taken over Twitter, there's been a whole new debate about free speech online. And of course, the US government is planning on setting up a Department of Ministry of Truth, if you like. So they're trying to fight disinformation and misinformation online. So maybe a noble goal, but it sounds like they're going about it the wrong way. And if they're going to do it, think of some of the big tech companies that should be challenged. And I'm talking about YouTube, for instance. I've got a presentation here, and I'm just going to click through it with you the old-fashioned way. It's called YouTube Goes Climate Crazy. I'm going to show you what's going on with our YouTube channel. YouTube has started pinning this Climate Change United Nations tag on all of our videos. It says, Climate Change, United Nations. Climate change refers to long-term shifts in temperature and weather patterns, mainly caused by human activities, especially the burning of fossil fuels. And when you click on it, it takes you to this UN page that says, what is climate change? Now, you should know that the UN is a political body, not a scientific body. So in this page by the UN, they claim GHGs, greenhouse gas emissions, are at the highest level in 2 million years, which sounds pretty impressive until you realize Earth is 4.5 billion years old. Greenhouse gas concentrations have been much higher in the past. Carbon dioxide concentration is a consequence of climate change. It's only nominally a cause of climate change. That's what the geologic history shows us. Scientists know this. Politicians do not. So it looks like YouTube has politicized climate science. They say because the Earth is a system where everything is connected, changes in one area can influence changes in all the others. Oh, really? Well, let's have a look at this visualization of a nonlinear, complex, chaotic system done by Henri Masson, who's a complex system expert. And you can see that, yes, changes in one area can influence changes in all the others. That's true, but look at all the natural factors driving climate change. Why do they only think human industrial GHG emissions cause climate change? That's just ridiculous. And the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, is a scientific body. Well, they admit that no one can predict future climate states. Climate factors are many, with complex interactions. They actually said in the 2001 report, in climate research and modeling, we should recognize that we are dealing with a coupled, nonlinear, chaotic system, and therefore that long-term prediction of future climate states is not possible. So let's look at 600 million years of evidence, or just the past 12,000. You can see that there's no correlation between CO2 concentration and warming. And climate change is defined by periods of 30, 50, 100, and 1,000 year cycles. But here, the UN is saying people are experiencing climate change in diverse ways. Not so much. Extreme weather events are things that people experience, but that's not climate change unless there's a statistical pattern that shows that the climate is actually changing. But individual extreme weather events are not evidence of climate change. But now, of course, in the media, every extreme weather event is claimed to be evidence of climate change. Yet, both the IPCC's special report on extreme weather of 2012 and scientists like Dr. Judith Curry and Dr. Madhav Kandekar have shown that extreme weather events are simply integral to climate patterns. And neither CO2 nor warming drives extreme weather events. In cool periods, like the Little Ice Age, from 1250 to 1860, the weather was so erratic and extreme that people were burned at the stake for the crime of weather cooking with the help of Satan. And there's a YouTube video about that done by our first scientific advisor, Dr. Sally Bellay-Younis, who was subject to a climate witch hunt, ironically, sadly. So you have to ask, are we still in medieval times, using superstition instead of science? Like, for instance, people had to move from Doggerland. Now, Doggerland is a piece of land in the North Sea and Channel between England, the UK, Norway, Denmark, and the Netherlands and the European continental shelf there. So that was about 8,000 years ago. Sea levels rose, Doggerland went under, and people had to move. So yeah, sea level rise is a real thing. But there were no SUVs or large coal plants then. This was nature making a very huge transformation. So in the YouTube UN page, it says every increase in global warming matters. Well, actually, no one can feel a 2/100ths of a degree Celsius rise or fall in temperature. And the temperatures that are being reported are actually a metric. There are many different temperatures that are based on temperature anomalies. They're adjusted, they're added together, and they're averaged. So it's not really a temperature measurement when they tell you that the global average temperature is warmer or cooler this year by this much. And when you look at the number of stations that there were prior to 1860, obviously whatever temperature they started from is fairly questionable, because what kind of baseline is that? It doesn't look like it even covers half of the land mass of Earth, let alone the oceans. Now, when the World Meteorological Organization put out a statement that it was the hottest year ever in 2016, the late Professor Dr. Istvan Marko of the Université Catholique de Louvain said, he said the WMO is another emanation of the United Nations, which is also, like the IPCC, an intergovernmental forum, and it declares 2016 to be the warmest year in history. Well, knowing that it's supposedly hotter by 0.02 degrees Celsius than 2015. That's 2/100ths of a degree warmer than 2016, with a margin of error on this value of 0.1 degrees Celsius. We see all the absurdity of this statement. For those who don't immediately understand it, this means that the variation in temperature could be plus 0.12 degrees global warming, or it could be minus 0.08 degrees Celsius global cooling. And in short, we can't say anything, and the WMO has simply lost its mind. It's so true. I mean, do you ever see the margin of error prominently displayed in a news article or a discussion like this, telling you what the variation in temperature could actually be? No, you just see the headline saying, wow, it's the hottest year ever. So, and even on the UN page that YouTube refers to, they don't make that distinction at all. Again, on the UN page that YouTube refers to, it, the headline says, we face a huge challenge, but we already know many solutions. First of all, there's no huge challenge, and secondly, we do not have solutions. And I strongly recommend that people read this report that Robert Lyman and Kent Zare, professional engineer, did, because it explains why renewable energy cannot replace fossil fuels by 2050. Fossil fuels are what we call energy dense, meaning that there's a great deal of energy generated by a small amount of the material, and that's just not the case for the proposed solutions like wind and solar, which of course are all made from coal, natural gas, and oil, and their byproducts. So it's a fallacy to say that wind and solar will take over the grid when you need conventional power generation, whether it be from fossil fuels, nuclear, or hydro, to back up those renewables and provide reliable energy when you need it. So on the UN page that YouTube refers to, the headline says, "We can pay the bill now or pay dearly in the future." There's always these fear-mongering statements from the UN. But Nobel Award-winning economist William Nordhaus disputes this UN claim. And here's a commentary by Robert Murphy saying that both fans and critics of William Nordhaus's computer model of the global economy and climate acknowledge that it's a crude approach that omits many crucial real-world considerations. Even so, it is surely significant that the work that won Nordhaus the Nobel Prize says quite plainly that the UN's special report on climate change is full of proposals that are ludicrously expensive. And in an interview after Nordhaus accepted his prize, he diplomatically handled the situation by saying that the 1.5 degrees Celsius target is impossible to achieve at this point. Yet, we can go further. Nordhaus's work shows that such an aggressive goal would make humanity much worse off than if we simply adapted to climate change with no government measures. So William Nordhaus is the golden boy of the climate world, and yet this is his practical advice, that the 1.5 degree target is not attainable at this time. And again, referring to the solutions that people propose, like wind and solar, YouTube, which is owned by Google, must not have gotten the memo from Google engineers. Google engineers say renewable energy won't solve the climate crisis, and the UN document that YouTube refers to says switching energy systems from fossil fuels to renewables like solar and wind will reduce the emissions driving climate change. It's just not true. It's not true that those emissions are driving climate change in any major way, and it's not true that switching to renewables will stop climate change, as the Google engineers found out. And in fact, YouTube seems to be pretty hypocritical by posting this material, because YouTube is alleged to be the world's highest emitting website, according to this story. So maybe they should clean up their own backyard first before posting little tags all over all of our videos, referring to information that's actually misinformation and wrong. And yes, YouTube has gone climate crazy. For Friends of Science Society, I'm Michelle Sterling. Thanks for watching. By the way, if you haven't subscribed, please do. And please write us a comment down below. And if you'd like to become a member or donate, go to our website and you can send us an e-transfer to contact@friendsofscience.org. Thanks.